I think the first part of Tower of God is absolutely fantastic. Now, let me preface a little bit, if you don't mind, before I kind of talk about the season one and why it's great. Because I was having a conversation about Tower of God, and then somebody came in who hasn't read it yet and asked this question: when does Tower of God get good? I'm about to get into so many things, so many problems I have with a lot of these questions and replies, and then somebody answers the second season, which I don't agree with. Now, let's start with the beginning. When does it get good? I hate this question. I understand the question, but don't ask me it, because I will always be cheeky and say chapter 1. And I believe that. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to a series, I get what the question means. It's the moment where it really hooks you and you stay forever kind of thing. In One Piece, when Nami is stabbing her arm over and over, yelling Arlong, Arlong, and then Luffy comes and she's like, please help me, puts the hat on her head, and he goes, of course, and the walk to Arlong Park. That to me was when I knew One Piece was never going to go anywhere. That was the moment where I'm like, I'm here forever. Mind you, I was along for the ride the whole time up until that point. I was still enjoying it. It's just when that happened, that's when I put my seatbelt on and said, don't stop the car. You know, I get it. The reason why I never ever give you and say you have to read into Arlong Park or season 2 until it gets good is because what you're doing is you're allowing that person to coast / skim, just go through the motions until they get to that chapter number. And I've seen it happen over and over, where if you try to have a conversation with somebody about a earlier part of the series, they can't recall it that well because they just rushed to the moment where you told them it gets good. This happened to me with Kingdom. People told me to read up until the Coalition arc, and if I didn't like it, that's when I dropped it. Mind you, that's like, I want to say about 200 chapters into the series. That's crazy. I'm not reading 200 chapters of something I don't enjoy until it gets good. Kingdom was great from the first chapter. Tower of God is great from the first chapter. One Piece is phenomenal from the first chapter. Now, this ties into something else I want to talk about. Now, me personally, I'm very patient, and I am a fan of the slow start. Why? I want to see the series go up, not decline. I'd rather see the incline and then get better and better and better and build on what it already has. And when every of those really big moments come, I like the long-term payoff. Shout out to Laz. Those moments are impactful. I like that. I find that series that start off extremely strong struggle in their latter half of the narrative, trying to relive former glory or live up to former glory. It happened. I think it happened with Naruto. Personally, I think it's happening with The Promised Neverland right now. Like, it happens pretty often, I would say. So I'm totally okay with the slow start, but I am patient, right? I have no problem reading a certain amount of chapters of something, but the way I do it is, it depends on the length. If your series is 1,000 chapters long, let's just say it's completed, I will not read 20 chapters and be like, this shit sucks. Okay? I need a good sample size. So I say I'll read about 200 chapters. If I'm not feeling it by then, I think by then I should have been very interested in something, a character, whatever the case may be. And if I'm not, I'll drop it. Now, I think you are 100% justified in dropping a series from the first episode of chapter if it's given you no reason to go to the next chapter. No character, the artwork, not the writing, not an iconic moment like Shanks putting the hat on Luffy, you know, the fateful kick with Yuri and Bam. Like, if there's no reason that the creative team has given you to continue, I think you are justified in dropping it. However, you don't get to actually criticize this series because you don't know anything about it. Now, let's go into the next part. It gets good at season 2. Oh, brother. So there's this stigma with Tower of God where it's like the first season is not that important. I actually have seen people say you can skip the first season. I'll slap the shit out of you. Don't ever say that to me. But a lot of people think that the first season Tower of God is not that good. It's bad. It only gets good when the second season starts with Viola and stuff. And the artwork is bad. I don't agree with the artwork. There's a lot of charm to the way that the artwork is framed, the panels, the paneling, and it's amateurish. Absolutely, I give you that. I don't think it's bad though. And personally, I love seeing SIU grow as an artist. Yes, now he has assistants, but seeing the artwork go up a notch and progress as the series goes on, to me is a good sign. I like to grow with my series. I like to grow with them as a writer, as an artist, as a storyteller, and I think SIU has gotten better with those things as the story has gone along. Now, let's talk about why season 1 is actually phenomenal. I'll never understand why a lot of people disrespect the beginning of so many series. I see this with so many series. I've seen this with Kingdom. I see this with One Piece. I see this with Tower of God. I see this with JoJo. JoJo was one of the ones that annoys me the most. Phantom Blood gets no respect, and I don't understand why. Ultimately, listen. I'm about to spoil some JoJo stuff. I don't know. I just assumed everyone watches JoJo, and if you don't, well, I'm sorry. Phantom Blood is the pillar of the JoJo series. It is what everything is built upon. It is the foundation piece. You cannot have a series without the beginning and classics establishing all of the various things that will get expanded upon as it continues. So Dio is pretty much the catalyst for almost everything that happens, even in later parts. You need to know the beginnings and the origin story of him and Jonathan. I don't understand why people disrespect it. Knowing the origin of Hamon, the Joestar bloodline, is also very, very important. East Blue, same thing. Tower of God, same thing. With Tower of God, the beginning of the series is what establishes all of the important characters and plot threads. Shit, Shinsu, so certain lore, world building terms, and actual like in-tower jargon that will get expanded upon. It's the beginning. People forget about the mysticism of not knowing, seeing a new character. Oh, what are they about? Oh, there's 10 great families. Yuri, who's this? A jihad. People forget about not knowing because hindsight's 2020, and now you have all this foreknowledge. But think back to when you were first experiencing Tower of God. I don't know how many of you are new or old. I caught up the Tower of God around the last examination. Right about where Kun did that fake out with Bam so that they can do the administrator's test. That's about when I caught up. So I've been reading it from the first year. Some of you guys probably caught up recently or later on, but I remember reading that and being so mesmerized by so many different things. Like, I want to know more about Anak and her past and what happened with her mom. Who's this Yuri chick? She's badass. Han Sung Yu was this like really, really dope character to me. I really liked him. I really like Hatsu a lot. Like, learning about the beginnings of Shinsu and Bangs and learning about lighthouses, the various, like the spear bearer, all that stuff was just like, that's the beginning. That's where it all starts. We don't get what we get today without those classic beginning moments. And now for me, my hook, the part where it gets good to me, is chapter 1, but the part when I was along for the ride was Han Sung Yu's examination, the test of like doors, whatever you want to call it. I thought that was so fucking brilliant when I read it the first time. How many moons ago it was? I'm a dinosaur. I don't know. I'm old. I don't even know how old I am. But it was just the way he set it up with the line and the screaming and somebody being in there to try to throw you off your game. And then when you get into that room with Leader Rack, the GOAT, Aguero, and Bam, and he's there, he's overthinking it, trying to analyze everything. Like, what's the test? How do you pass it? What happens? And Rack just goes, fuck it. He picks a door and they pass the test. And he learned that it doesn't matter what you did. As long as you chose any door in 5 minutes, you're good. And I was like, yo, that's sick. And in addition to that, it gets even better when you see Shiplisu actually be the only person who passed the test by legitimately figuring it out. because at that point, Shibisu kind of comes across as this probably not going to be important character. I think by design, he's kind of plainish, and you get that like he won't be around for long kind of impression from him. He seems like just comic relief. Remember when he's trying to get to the Shinsu veil and he's bleeding, blah blah blah. But then you get that moment, and you have to take a step back and be like, wait a minute, this nigga's smart. What the fuck? Because he's the only one who solved it by himself. Laura was just like, oh, I'm tired. This one. Pass. All right, bet. Sleep. That one guy was like, I am the Messiah. The God has spoken to me. And like everyone had their own gimmick to to passing the test. Shibisu figured it out. He knew exactly what to do. So I think people forget about those little moments because that shit is fantastic, and that is what established him as an important character. Because I can argue, I'm not saying he is, but I can make the argument that he's smarter or as smart as Aguero. Aguero was just a lot more deceiving, cunning, conniving, and willing to do something extremely dark, quote unquote evil, to succeed. Where Shibistu's a much better person, so he may not kind of plunge his hands in the filth to that degree. Never forget what happened on Nehon Station. If he was not there, they would have got blown to Kingdom Come. So put respect. Shout out to East. Now, and so now like again, people are not remembering these moments. People not remembering when Shinsu was first being explained by Lobo Beer Ren, right? So now he's talking about Shinsu as the world. He's teaching you about bangs. We're learning about the various positions. Rack is competing with that one guy trying to launch spears at things. And this is when like the positions were built up to be this very important thing. I think we've kind of lost that right now. Though I do know that, as you said, the higher up you go in floors, the more important your various positions become. So I'm still very much looking forward to seeing that become a more prominent thing, because I fucking like team battles. And like Haku said back in our Shinsu stream, it was actually nice to see a lot of the high rankers still doing this, because when they had to face Vankel number 60, you can see they had her being the fisherman. Then El Pathion was the light bearer from like a distance. Then he had your spear bearer. Like they were still using these combination techniques. So it gives me hope that we will see that. But never forget how amazing it was to initially learn about this stuff, because I always say, in a sense, in a way, just loosely, Tower of God is kind of an isekai. You're taking Bam from outside the cave. Now we know he's technically born on the tower, killed, and then sent outside to come back in, blah blah blah. He's kind of a special case, but I'm just saying, like, you're taking a character from a certain world and you're displacing them from whatever they know, and you're throwing them into a completely unknown environment. One of the main reasons I have no problem with the beginning exposition dumps you get in Tower of God is because we are Bam. We are completely foreign to this tower. We don't know anything. We need this lore dump because that helps us understand the inner workings and geography of the tower and various things about it. We have to learn that with them and with some of these regulars who are not particularly from a prestigious family or something. So we have to learn along with them. So it's important for these things to happen. And I think people forget that because now we know what we know, so like it doesn't seem as important, especially in a reread. Though I argue every time you read Tower of God with the foreknowledge you have, you're going to notice, think, and speculate more and more about certain things, right? So the Jihad Princess stuff, that was very interesting to learn. And Dorsey's story, how she came to power, we haven't learned about that yet. We've only had the seed planted. And it probably is being watered off screen by SIU, but that's going to become important probably in the Jihad War, if she has some kind of important backstory or moment. There's so many things about Season 1 that I just feel like people are not remembering. Go back and read it. If you can't read the whole Tower of God narrative before it comes back, I implore you to just, at the very least, read the first season, about 78 chapters. Just reread it. I promise you'll have a greater and deeper appreciation for that. I think the Crown game is fantastic. The Crown game was one of those moments where I learned, okay, so each floor is gonna have its own little test / game gimmick, and the Crown game was fantastic to see everyone's like different combat on display and stuff. I liked it a lot. Anak. We learn about the 13th month series. You know, remember, Bam has the Black March, she has the Green April, and she wants it. So it's like, you just forget. These people just don't remember. The humor was amazing. It's very funny. Tower God is super hilarious. I think it's obviously going to have kind of less and less comedy as things get more serious. That's just the nature of the beast of a long running series that's based on action. At some point, you have to kind of cut down on some of the comedic moments for the most part. Some authors are very good at not letting that die, but I always argue that the humor and comedy will always lessen as the stakes rise as you approach the end part, and you have to get a bit of a more focus on your main character because they kind of run the series and the world bends to their will. So the thing about the first season of Tower that's really good is that there isn't the over obsessance on Bam all the time. You're getting to see a lot of these characters get a lot of shine. This is actually true with a lot of the beginnings of season 2 with like Rand and whatnot, but I just remember being able to learn and see and have these characters interact because at that point Bam was still an irregular and he was still very gifted, but he was not strong yet. So it was kind of like everybody was kind of carrying him, so it was different in that sense. So getting to see like Anak being like, I thought you were pretty handsome, Shibisu, like ignite this, and the Black March like shocks him, you know, like there's, and Dorsey being by herself really lonely. And I think this part is actually really brilliant and one of the things I kind of miss about Bam, where it was like he understands what it means to be lonely, having been in that cave for so long. He can identify it easily. He's kind of the one who got her to start interacting more with other characters. Like, man, I don't know, man. Season 1 is amazing for that. Anak and Dorsey's little scuffle, that was hilarious. That was really good. And learning about a little bit about F.U.G and Han Sung-yu and whatnot, what was going on with them. And then the position test. And this is some of the moments I really like, because this starts to show off how cunning Aguero really is, where he basically plotted on his own downfall to keep Bam in the game. And this shows how much he actually values him as a friend, because he went really far so that Bam could continue to climb with them. That test was really cool to see everybody try their own thing, but I just love it. Ho's jealousy coming, you know, full circle at that point. And then it would be disingenuous to talk about part 1 and not mention Michelle Light, Lahel, aka Rachel. Now, I don't know how many of you guys may have seen this coming. I did not see it coming. I could tell she was getting a little bit jealous of seeing Bam kind of move on without her, because at that point, and I would say from even way into season 2, he's only in that tower so he can get Rachel and go back to the cave, right? And she's like, listen, I ain't trying to be in that dinky ass cave, man. Stars out. So I feel it. But sorry. I laugh when I think about that. He's like, yo, come back to the cave. Like, no, bitch. Like, fuck the cave, man. We don't be in that shit. But Rachel, I mean, Bam is chasing Rachel, right? That's what he's there for. He just wants to know why she blah, blah, this and that and the other. So the moment where she pushes him in the last examination is a moment that hit me the way I'm about to spell Death Note, I guess, if you haven't read or watched Death Note in 2019. But the way L. Lolliot's death hit me when I first read it way back in, I want to say 2008, because I thought I missed something. I'm like, oh, did I miss a chapter or a page or something? And I went back to the beginning of the chapter and reread it. And I was like, no, L's really dead. And I was like, yo, she really pushed him. And I could not understand why she did that at the time. And I was like, what? And understand that this if I read this today, it probably wouldn't have hit me the same, because I could just read the epilogue in the next couple of chapters right off the bat. But this is when I had to wait. So I was like sitting with this in class throughout my day. I'm like, why did she do it? How come she pushed him? I don't understand. I was like emotionally distraught. I couldn't believe. And that's where the kind of hatred for Rachel builds up. But I think that people also are not recalling that this is the moment where Rachel's character becomes probably one of the most polarizing, controversial characters I have personally seen been discussed across various series. That's the moment where it happens because she betrayed him, and people kind of forget that she's the one who taught Bam his morality and his ethics. It comes from her. She's the one that taught him everything he knows, and she's the one who betrayed those very teachings. I think that's why it hits a lot of people a lot harder. Some of y'all are just scumbags and are rooting for Rachel. Some of you guys are actually just like, you're just praising the brilliance of her character from a written standpoint, and that's fine. I totally agree with that. In hindsight, like in the long journey of my Tower of God climb, at this point, I'm indifferent about Rachel. I don't want to see her succeed. I don't like her, but I don't have a seething, irrational hatred for the character that a lot of people have, or that I used to have when I first began reading it. I just don't anymore. It's tiring. She keeps winning. It's just fruitless. Let's just let her do her thing. It is what it is. But that's what happened. Season 1. And the epilogue was crazy because of him and F.U.G falling down, surviving, seeing her, that she was actually there, seeing him with the steel eel fish on the first floor. She didn't belong in the tower, what Hadon said, and they made a deal we still don't know about, mind you. This is where we learn about irregulars and stuff. It's just like, there are just so many things about the first season that are fantastic. I even think the artwork it gets better, a lot better towards the end. I like when Yuri pops up in the last examination, takes the Green April, fights with Ren a bit, Red, everything. Like, it's just seeing her travel there through the middle floors and stuff. It's just a lot of things there that I just want a lot of people to go back, reread, re-experience, and I think you will gain a deeper appreciation for this first season. I'm not telling you season 1 is better than season 2. I'm not telling you season 2 is better than season 1. I'm not telling you they're equal. I'm just saying don't disrespect the beginning. Disrespecting the beginning of a series is something I just do not understand at this point in my life. Because you can't have what you have in the latter halves. Character reveals, power reveals, this, that, whatever, without the foundation. You need a foundation to build something upon. So without that, you don't have it. So put respect on season 1. Reread it if you have not revisited it in a long time. It's about 78 chapters. It's not too long. If you have a chance, though, I would say reread that and the blog post, and then the rest of the series and the blog post, just for a refresher for when we come back later on in March. But with that being said, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. We'll probably have a discussion about season 1 with the Virgo and some other people when we get a chance to stream it. But I wanted to get my thoughts out there a little early, so thank you guys for listening, and I'm gonna be out. Yeah.